Hi everybody, next we're going to look at the short run aggregate supply curve and what we call supply side shocks. And these are sudden unexpected changes in the cost of a factor of production. So we've established in the last video why the short run aggregate supply curve is relatively elastic and upward sloping like this. And we'd assumed that the price of the factors of production was fixed. But actually, you could have a sudden change in the cost of a factor of production, and this will cause your short-run aggregate supply curve, so what your economy is capable of producing in the short run, to either shift to the left, so a decrease in what the economy is capable of producing, or a shift to the right, an increase in what they're capable of producing. So remember, left is less and right is more. So left is less. And you can remember this with this SPIT, and this stands for, the first one is subsidies. If firms are receiving subsidies, this will mean that effectively their costs of production go down. So the cost of their production will be less. And if the cost of production is less, they'll be capable of producing more. And therefore, this will cause the short-run aggregate supply to increase, and it will shift to the right. And this will mean that your equilibrium is at Y2. You're capable of producing more, and your real output increases from Y to Y2. We can also see that there's a fall in the average price level, or deflation happening here. The second one is productivity. We know that productivity is output per factor input per time period. And if your productivity, how much you're able to produce from your factors of production, let's imagine that this goes up. If your productivity is higher, your economy is capable of producing more. And that will cause your short-run aggregate supply to increase. So again, it would shift to the right to SRAS 2. The third one is your import prices, and this relates to raw materials, because if firms are importing raw materials, if these become cheaper, this will mean that the firm can buy more raw materials and they'll now be capable of producing more. So this would cause your short-run aggregate supply to increase. This might be because those raw materials, the price of them just falls. It could also be because your currency gets stronger. And if your currency is stronger, we know that your imports will be cheaper. You'll remember that spiced, strong pound imports cheap, exports dear. So it might be because your currency is stronger, but it also just might be because the price of the raw material goes down. A good example here is oil. The oil price falling would mean that firms are capable of producing more. We'd move to SRAS 2. The fourth one is taxes on businesses. This is sort of the opposite of a subsidy. If a firm has to pay more taxes, so if these taxes go up, this will mean that their costs are essentially going up and they won't be able to produce as much. So this would cause their short-run aggregate supply to fall. And if their short-run aggregate supply falls, the firms aren't capable of producing as much. So if that's happening across the economy, the short-run aggregate supply will decrease and it will shift to the left to SRAS 1. So these are 4 things to remember of why your short-run aggregate supply might increase to the right or decrease to the left. And this quite often is in shorter answer questions. You are asked about this in the exam.